I just like that song. How's everybody doing? Thank you for tuning in once again to the double episode of Motivation Moments. My name is Gregory Bloomfield, and I pray that you enjoyed the first part, which was the conclusion of our Bible study, dealing with the subject of the election is over now. What? If you enjoyed that, share that with other people. And if those of you watching now, at the end of this, you can surely tune in and you can listen to that broadcast. And please share it with other people. And also, what I want to ask you to do is if you can like, share, and subscribe to this channel. That is so important for us to build this channel and build this community. Subscribe, 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 subscribe. So on YouTube, we're at 167 subscriptions. I want to see if we can get at least 3 more today so we can get 160. We're growing on Facebook, but we're lacking a little bit on YouTube. So if you can please subscribe, don't just watch, but also subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. So we shout out everybody on YouTube. We shout out to the 263 Facebook subscribers. We also shout out to the about 12 over 1200 on LinkedIn, and we have about 930 here on Instagram. So we thank you so much for tuning in this evening. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. If you're enjoying the content and the shows, then please let us know by shooting us an email, a DM, or something like that. And for this part of the show, we really need you to participate and say something. If you engage in the conversation, we're having an excellent time. We're at episode 106 on our way to 200. Now, you can tell I'm not home. I'm in a hotel room. I'm here in the city of Detroit, Michigan. So everybody who's watching from Detroit, put up a Detroit or shout 313 or whatever you want to put in here, Detroit, or even shout out what city you're watching us from. So I'm here in Detroit, Michigan. I'm here visiting family. I'm here visiting with my wife, her amazing son, Jalen, and his wife, Tatiana, and their beautiful children. My grandchildren now. I got grandkids now, Harley and Ivy. So I'm really excited for them and their life here in Michigan. So, and also one thing, I haven't been to Detroit in many years, and I've been back here. And yeah, shout out to Macomb. Yes. And that's where we are. And I want to shout out especially the church that we attended here in the Detroit area. If you're ever in town, you need to check out the Detroit City SDA Church. They are amazing. We went there to visit, and even from the jump, we felt like family. So shout out to Pastor Neville Lindor. He was originally from the New York City area. And shout out to him and his amazing church and his amazing message. And definitely to Pastor Trisha Wynn Payne as well. They're holding it down. And also their praise team / musical group, Serenity. They are bananas. They are amazing. So if you have never heard of the group Serenity, then I don't know where you coming from. They're going to hold it down in Detroit. And I pray that they're going to be huge in the name of Jesus. So if you're ever in the Detroit area, we ate good food. Amen. How many here know that church is not church unless you get a word and a good meal? So unless you have those two things, you didn't go to church. So we had both. So we are definitely, when we're back in Detroit, we'll definitely come back and visit our new home church in Detroit, the Detroit City Temple. Tonight, we are, and forgive me, there's a rainstorm outside, so if you hear some rain, that's what you're hearing right now. But I'm going to talk a little louder so you can not hear the rain. One of the things I want to say to you is that we are celebrating and saluting our veterans. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. In Canada, it's Remembrance Day. And what I'd like you to do is take some time, and if there's a veteran in your life, shake their hand, tell them thank you. Yeah. It's really important that regardless in this political climate and regardless of the election or whoever won or lost, our veterans need to be recognized and taken care of. Amen. So, for those of you who've served in any of the 6 branches, if you're Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, National Guard, or even the newly formed Space Force, that's 7, I believe, that I counted. Please let them know that we value you, we love you, and we thank you for serving this country and protecting us and fighting for us and helping us have the freedoms that we have here. I'm free to be on the internet sharing the word of God and doing this podcast because of many of the freedoms that have been protected, the freedom of speech and freedoms that we have right now. So I just want to say thank you to them. If we can just put a thank you or salute to veterans in the chat, I'd greatly appreciate it. We have a veteran with us today. We're interviewing different veterans throughout the month of November. And the person that we have is known as Kimi J. Her government name is Kimisha Johnson, but I met her as Kimi J. So we're going to call her Kimi J today. Now, Kimisha Johnson is, or AKA Kimi J, is an Air Force veteran who resides in the Atlanta metropolitan area. Shout out to Atlanta, ATL. So if you're from ATL, I know she got her people on here. With her 2 teenagers, Kimisha, or Kimi, recently graduated with her Master's of Legal Studies and Taxation. That is the same degree that I have up in Massachusetts from Washington University School of Law, and has the pleasure of working in her field of study in a national law firm in Atlanta. She is the middle child and the only daughter of Harry and Gwendolyn Thomas. And in her downtime, she enjoys attending social events with their other entrepreneurial-minded professionals and fellowship with single, married-minded singles who support one another in their faith. And she credits her resilience, her strong will and determination from her mother, grandmother, and aunts. She is lovingly refers to them as the Proverbs 31 role. She's a Proverbs 31 co-author of Becoming the Kaya Woman. And a shout out to her models, Annette, Darlene, Penny, Sharon, and Robin. Kimi acknowledges the benefit of growing up surrounded by wives, women of faith, homemakers, and multipliers. She is passionate about being an example, instilling the same values to her daughter. She is also retired Air Force. So we're going to have a conversation as to her life in the Air Force, what made her enlist, and the values that she has taken into her civilian life and even raising her daughter, her children. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you a cool woman, Kimi Johnson, aka Kimi J. Hey,
Hello.
Kimi J, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank
All
you for
right.
having me.
No problem. No problem. Now, like I said in the back room, don't be nervous at all. It's just you and me and 100 other people watching. So no
Great.
pressure.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
No pressure at
No
all.
pressure. No
No,
pressure.
none. It's just like tax law. Now it's amazing. This is how Kimi J and I became friends. She posted something on Instagram of a textbook that she used to study for her master's in taxation, like me. And when I saw the textbook, I have to admit, I was triggered. And I, and I said, Wow,
right?
I haven't seen. I sold that book, and it was. Can you show that textbook? Wait a minute. Zen just saying hi, by the way. Zen just said hi. Yeah, this is the textbook. So the federal, yeah, it's the
Income
big.
taxation. Yes.
Yes, federal. That is the book that if you ever want to go into tax law, that's the universe. We call that back when I was in grad school. That was referred to as the Green Book. If you ever want to sleep,
Yeah. I
read.
cried. I cried reading the book, to be honest. I'm gonna be honest. Several nights, okay? Just trying to get a basic understanding of what was, what's in it. But I
Yeah,
made it through. We
we
made it through.
made it through. So
We're survivors.
yes, ma'am, and we have the same degree. That's pretty cool. So I was like, hey, you tax person. I'm a tax person too. That's cool. But one of the things that I didn't know until recently is that you served in the armed forces. You served as in the Air Force. And first of all, thank you for your service. And I want to give an opportunity for you to share your experience in the Air Force. Like what motivated you to enlist? What was your enlistment process like? What was your training like? And some of the stuff that you learned along the way as a senior airman in E4 in the Air Force. So let's start from the very beginning.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
the floor is yours.
Okay. So correction, I am not a retired. I have not retired. I did not
Oh,
retire. Excuse
I'm
me.
sorry. My
No, you're
apologies.
completely fine. So I served 4 years, 5 months active duty, and 6 months in the reserves.
Okay.
Okay. Um, I enlisted in the Air Force. Well, let me first say this. Um, I've I've owned an ID card, a military ID card, my entire life. So my dad served 20 years in the Marine Corps, and my mother was in the Navy when they met. My mom has, five sisters, four brothers. Everyone served in the armed forces. Their children, armed forces. Um, we have this joke that uh, our family breeds service members. um, that's the way that my family survived, supported their families was through military service, and not so much graduating high school and going straight to college. That wasn't something that they did. So they would just go off into the service and then bring back their wives or their husbands, right, to the family, to the fold. But anyway, so I was raised as a military brat. I went into the Air Force May of '04, and I decided to become a military police officer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I came in on the delayed entry program, and I have to be honest, I got into some trouble. So I first had to go to court and pay some court costs before I enlisted, but they still let me become a cop. Okay, so
Um,
my first experience. Well, let me go back to basic training. Um, I attended basic training in Texas at Lackland Air Force Base, and I stayed from basic training through tech school because the tech school for the cops were on the other side of the base. So, you know, let me get into that experience. Basic training um, showed me how much, how much, what I was made of. Right.
okay.
Um, I'm small. Right. I'm 5 foot nothing. And so I'm 5 foot nothing, and
But your
you know
pictures look like you 5'7", 5'8".
that's how I feel inside,
That's how you
right?
feel. That's the
that's,
heels.
that's how I feel. Exactly. That's why I stay in them.
Yeah.
But
Heels
basic
are the
training,
great equalizer of life.
that part, basic training stretched me. It did. Um, it was a challenge. Certain parts were a challenge. I went into the gas chamber successfully. Um,
So for the audience who doesn't know, civilians like myself, could you explain what the gas chamber is or what that training is like?
oh gosh. Okay. So Okay. Um, I don't think they do it anymore, but going into
Oh,
the gas chamber, it's like a tear gas agent that they use, and it's to simulate um, any type of, I guess, neuro agent that can be used against you if you're deployed or what have you. What you do is you go in with your gas mask. Your instructor will tell you to take it off. You take it off, and you have to quote, like for us, it was the security forces creed, like a sentence out of the creed. So you're inhaling a little bit of the agent, and once they tell you to stop, you put your gas mask back on, and then you exit the gas chamber. So what happens next is all of your um, you're snotting and tearing. Sorry, you're you're all snotting and tearing, and you're leaking, right? Because your face is burning. All the things because you were exposed to that particular agent, and more men cried than women. As we were waiting for it to, rinsing our faces off and trying to, get back to normal, but it really sucked, for lack of a better term. Um, that exposure, and I don't think they do it anymore. But
mm,
so that's the gas chamber experience. We also pulled pin on active weapons and threw them, and I don't know that I can actually say what it was on YouTube, but just learning different major weapon systems, even
mm.
all of that was a challenge for me. I had to carry weapons heavier than my body armor. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So, like I said, being a little one, it was a challenge,
Mm,
but I pushed through. I went into the military to be able to support myself. I was young, and because my dad was a Marine, he always told me that, because of my attitude, that I couldn't become a Marine, right? That I would have to choose a different branch because if I chose to be a Marine, I would fly down to Paris Island and they would bust me back before completing training. So I decided to go in the Air Force because the way I looked at it is, everybody makes the same amount of money. So if the Air Force will deal with my attitude and I don't have to train as hard as a Marine, why not?
oh wow. So that was the reason why. So that was the reason why you chose the Air Force as
That's the
opposed to
reason
the
why I thought it
Marine.
would be easy street.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a lot of the training is similar. Like we had Zen John last week, and she talked about her army training, and it was rigorous. It was tough, but I don't recall her saying anything about gas chambers. You talking about a gas chambers, but it's. Do you think that there's anything unique about the training with the Air Force as opposed to other branches? You say it's easier, but is there anything else that makes it unique?
I'm not sure. I know that during I had to go on a upside down on a tightrope across a pool, and I can't swim, so I don't know if she had to do anything like that. For real, I don't know if she had to do anything like that, but I did, and it was a struggle for me. I was stuck in the middle, right, because my upper body strength wasn't strong enough. Like I was hanging on, And the thing about that tightrope is, again, you're upside down and you have your arms gripping the rope, and then your legs, your feet are wrapped around the rope also, and so you're kind of pulling yourself along.
Yeah.
But I knew I couldn't swim, so I knew that I wasn't going to drop because failing wasn't an option.
Mm.
And I just hung on in the middle, and they were like, "Just drop. We'll come and get you." And I thought to myself, these people are going to let me die, or they're going to let me suffer. They're going to let me suffer before they come and get me. So I don't know how I did it. I think it was God, right? I got my little body across that pool of water, without a drop on me. So I felt
Mm.
accomplished after that. Like I could do something. Like I was doing something. I just listen. I was trying to follow everybody else and keep up. I just didn't want to fail and get washed back.
Nice. We had a comment before. I said the Air Force
Oh,
spoils their soldiers. LOL. So you shots fired. Pardon the
right,
pun.
right. I had struggles too, Zinja. Listen, I still had to drag my face through the mud like y'all.
Oh
Pelvis to
wow.
the ground and all those things. I had to do that too.
Wow.
It just didn't look like with all the yelling that y'all had going on. We didn't have all of that.
Oh, it was quiet in in the Air
They,
Force, but
they
the
made
Army
fun
was
of us, but they weren't yelling and barking in our faces. That's the
oh,
difference, I
oh,
think.
okay. Good to know. We're here with Kimi J, who's here with as someone who's serving in the armed forces in the capacity of the Air Force. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel. All right, so you did all the training, you did all the stuff that was obviously was challenging. Did you tell us about did you have flying experience? Did you get to fly in planes and all that type of stuff, or
Um,
oh boy.
so, as,
Did I
as
strike
a military police, we stared at a lot of planes. Our job
there?
was also security, right? You have the security side, and then you have the policing side. So sometimes you had to sit at a post where you're just watching a plane and making sure that no one breaks red. Basically making sure that no unknown person comes on the flight line um, near those resources, right? And you have the um, if they do, you challenge them or you shoot them. Oh, I don't know if you could.
No,
Okay, or
that's fine.
excuse
That's
me.
fine.
Yeah.
You
So, yeah. So that was the mission, right? It's boring until something actually happens. So we had a lot of time to train. There was lots of base exercises, but as far as
mhm,
flying is concerned, um,
no.
I had the. I'm sorry, I'm getting stuck. Um, um, I experienced a combat landing on my way to the desert, right? So it wasn't the best flying experience. If you know what a combat landing is, that's when the plane is either, you know, strategically going back and forth if there's hostile fire or anything underneath, down below, or they go ahead and take a nosedive, right,
Right.
on a C-130. And so
Oh
that's what
wow.
I experienced in full battle rattle is a plane taking a nosedive, um, so that we could get to the ground. And it's not like a normal plane. It's not like you have fancy seating. You're kind of on a cot with all your helmet on, your flak vest on, and all the things, and you just have like this little flimsy strap on that cot holding you in, and then there's a bunch of cargo on the back of the plane. So it was scary. It actually was very traumatizing. But that's the only experience as far as flying. I didn't fly any planes, but I definitely had the experience of being on, traveling on those planes to get to the desert, and it wasn't pleasant for me.
Sure.
Sorry.
Well,
It
thank
wasn't
well
pleasant at all.
thank you for your service nonetheless. I just believe because I have family members, I have cousins of mine that have served in the army in non-combat roles. They basically were buyers um, of equipment. They would order stuff and supplies for the troops, and they actually served in Afghanistan. So they were out there for a couple of years, and then they did different deployments out there. But hopefully I get the terms right. But it's like whether I believe anybody who served in any capacity, whether it's infantry, whether it's combat um, roles or non-combat roles, all of it is service, and all of it is to a certain degree dangerous, right? Because anything can happen, bases can get attacked, all those type of things, and you got to know. At least for what I was told, everybody's got to know how to use a weapon, right? Even the chaplains got to know how to shoot if they need to. So
In the Air Force, that's true.
Mhm.
I think the other MOSs, the other jobs, they have to do a yearly qualification or something like that. But for the cops, it's different. We had to, go to the gun range more frequently. Um, so that's the difference. In the Air Force, like everyone knows how to, but they basically say, hey, look, at the end of the day, we hide behind the cops. Let the cops do it. let
Oh
them
yeah.
take care of it, in the desert.
So it's interesting. It's like a lot of times people, I would think that people, if they had military police roles in whatever branch of the service, when they become a civilian, it would easily translate to being a police officer in whatever city or town they're in. You clearly did not choose that route.
I did
So,
not.
yeah. Why is that? Like, you would be a perfect police officer in the city of Atlanta, or at least I assume you would if you were a military police officer. Or am I dead wrong?
I mean, so you're right. Like, for instance, I was stationed at Robins Air Force Base in Georgia, and we had to do a lot of post training, a lot of training, receive a lot of training from police outside of like state police training, like what do they call it? With the driving courses. We had to receive certifications from them. But here's the thing, the jurisdiction is what um, our jurisdiction was only on base, right? But for anything that happened outside of the gate, we needed certain certifications. And so we received that training from Georgia, the state of Georgia. So if could I actually, wasn't an option for me to get out and become a civilian police officer? Sure. But I was determined that I would not. Okay. I even tried youth development center. Like after I got out, I was a correctional officer for the juvenile detention center in Macon, and that was a disaster. I was studying at the time, but I also had to work, right?
Mhm.
So I tried doing something different, or I tried to keep the security thing going when I got out of the military, but it didn't work for me. And so I wanted
Mm.
to actually further get education in an area where I could just sit down, okay, and deal with law from a desk, okay. And so that's why I went after. That's why I went after my degree in paralegal studies at the time,
Right. So the
versus
death.
going to be a cop. I couldn't see myself. I can't see myself being a cop.
All
Okay,
right. Desk work was more your speed.
that's
You've done.
right.
You've
I
done.
had enough time outside in the elements. Believe me.
Wow. With that being said, um, as you self-described yourself as 5 foot whatever, and you described yourself, well, obviously, as a woman in the armed services, and as someone who is 5 foot whatever. What are some of the greatest challenges that you faced in terms of people taking advantage of that, meaning like, oh, she's this little thing trying to tell me what to do. I don't care if you military police, I'm gonna do what I need to do. Did you encounter a lot of resistance, or darn near like disrespect, and you had to fight to prove that you were tough in the armed forces because of your nature, and people just not taking a shorter woman seriously to give orders to and stuff like that? Did you experience that? And if you did, can you tell us a little bit about that and how you overcame it?
Mm. To answer your question, you may not believe it, but I did not receive, you know, disrespect because of my height. I've never carried myself in a way where I don't think anyone would feel comfortable, just disrespecting me just because I'm small. I'll say it like this. When I went into basic training, they have something that they call element leaders, right? Which, when the flight chief is away, um, these element leaders are the ones who run the dorm, right? And keeps everybody in line, make sure everything's together. I was selected not because I'm small. I was selected because I guess my demeanor, and because of my demeanor, and me letting them know and identifying myself as being not only a military brat, but letting them know, like my father's rank. And it was asked of us from the beginning. It's not like I just gave that information away. They would ask, who has family who's, an officer in the armed forces, or who, has, um, a family member who's, this rank or whatever rank it was that they asked. And once I identified myself as being one of those, I guess I haven't, like, I don't know why he chose me, but I was selected to be an element leader. And I took it seriously, and the girls took me seriously. I didn't have anyone challenging me because of my height. And as a matter of fact, one of my closest friends, I met her, in basic training, and we weren't friends at first. But what I did was I intentionally put her bed right next to mine so she could look at my face every morning. And we soon, yeah, and we soon became fast friends. And well, after a while, okay, because she's gonna deny that part of the story.
No,
But my point being,
you gonna look at me
that's
in
the
the
way I
morning.
felt.
And,
That's the way I
and
felt. I didn't know that she would be the only friend or family member in the room for my firstborn years later, um,
wow.
or that I would deploy with her, years later. But anyway, to answer your question, no, my height did not wasn't outside of being a physical challenge for me with like equipment.
Mhm.
People didn't disrespect me as a military cop because of my height, and they describe me as being the meanest. I don't know why.
You know what it is though? It's like sometimes it's the smallest ones are the toughest ones. Like I've known people that are tall and you would think that they're tough and mean and they're like Shrek. They're like gentle giants.
I,
But it's the smaller ones that are like, "Do you gonna do that?" And then yeah,
it's the
there's.
Napoleon syndrome that I have. I don't.
I'm glad
I,
you said it.
you know, my mom is 4'11", and she was a force. She's always been a force. You
Mm,
know, one thing she can do is put some fear in somebody's heart,
my God.
and let me tell you, you believe it. You listen. You believe that lady. She does not play. I love her, but I
Yeah,
get it from her. Both, her and I also get it from my father. Um, but I don't play in that way, where I would let someone disrespect me.
you,
Height.
you know you know what the funny thing is? Now that you say it, I actually really believe it. 'Cause no,
Listen,
it's
I'm not saying that because I think I'm the toughest or anything like that. I just don't tolerate that type of disrespect. I treat people with respect, as much respect as they give me, and so I in turn expect that.
yeah,
Anything less than that, if we have a problem, we have a problem.
yeah,
But
and I think
thank God for Christ.
thank God, hallelujah.
I'm so
Hey,
grateful for
mm, yes,
right.
ma'am. And with listen, if you have a question for Kimi J, please put it in the comments and we'll try our best to answer those questions. Please interact with us as well, as we're discussing what it is to be like in the Air Force and Armed Services. It's not the size of dog in the fight, but it's the size of the fight in the dog. Amen. Amen.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we're not saying you a dog. We're saying
Okay.
you know, but yeah, it's true. It's a lot of times has nothing to do with size. It has to do with it clearly shows that you're a woman that is very confident in themselves. A woman that's very doesn't, in the words of James Brown, Papa don't take no mess. And that I think is a great quality. And would you say you got that from being in the armed forces or your parents being in the armed forces and instilling that with you and it passed on to how you are today? Where do you think that tenacity and that toughness comes from?
I definitely believe it's from my parents, it's from my dad, the way he raised my brothers and myself. He was no nonsense, and so it. Not to say that he wasn't just he was a Marine. My dad didn't play. He loves to laugh and he loves to joke and clown around, but when it's time to take care of business, my dad is no nonsense, and
Mm,
I know for sure that I get that from him. My work ethic, I get from my father. He's one of those people where he can't stop. Even in retirement, my dad, he's always doing something, working on something. He doesn't tell people no. If you ask him to do something, he's going to take care of it, and you can trust him take him at his word.
yeah.
I'm the same way. It's like I love to laugh and joke, but when it's time to take care of business, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we get from our parents, and it forms us as to who we are. How so? Let's talk about civilian life now. So, in your bio, I read that you are a parent, that you have your kids, and tell me how your life in the military, one, has translated to civilian life, and two, is translated to your parenting. So, what are some of the key skills that you have in managing life's challenges and also being a parent of two girls or one boy, one girl?
A boy and a girl.
Okay. All right. So, tell us about how the military has formed your parenting style.
Well, I keep a schedule. I'm in the military. They have a you have a night display, meaning that you prepare everything before for the next day. So your uniform and everything, your shoes, everything you lay out beforehand. Um, I'm one of those types. Even today, I have my kids lay out like a night display. Um, I'm always organized and preparing my bags for work and things of that nature the night before. I like to stay on schedule. I hate that I'm predictable in that way when it comes to our day to day, Monday through Friday, but it helps. I think it's good for kids and with my children. Uh, and I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. With my children, structures, especially being a single mom, is important, right?
Yeah.
Um, because if anytime we go off track or we end up doing anything other than what we planned for them, it disrupts the flow of the household. I don't
Mhm.
think that I'm strict. I give my kids ample leeway to be themselves. So I wouldn't say that the structure that I received in the military, like it translates to me being hard on my kids.
Yeah.
I think I'm fair. In civilian life at work, they know me to be timely. 15 minutes early is 15 minutes late. So they understand that I'm predictable at work. I take lunch at the same time every day where other people do not. I
Mm.
come to work, I'm prepared, and again, they can predict based on where I am in the office at a certain time on that I'm taking care of a certain thing, certain tasks, whether it be getting out some mail, preparing documents for clients, things of that nature. I'm pretty structured, and so ultimately, I'd say that that's what I took from the military. Really, um, is just being a structured person, being a disciplined person. My children don't think that I'm too hard on them, but they do
Mhm.
understand that I expect a certain thing from them. Their best. I don't tell
Yeah.
them that they need to be perfect, but that I need their best.
Yeah.
So
I think that those are excellent things as well because I don't know if it's the accountant in me or I don't know if it's because I did not serve in the military. My mother, shoot, I might as well have with the parents I had. But I just the one of the things is that my parents, they wanted the best for me. So my mother was a very organized woman. My father even more so. And I think that structure and routine is good for kids. And I'm even that way now in terms of I have like 6 Google calendars and everything has to be on a calendar or on my phone or else if it's not in my calendar I won't remember it, right? I have to write things down. I have a schedule and I'm borderline workaholic. Like I just like I don't stop. I have to force myself to rest because I'm all my mind is always going, but I have to like literally put times for in my calendar for everything. Now, but saying that, and this leads to my next question, that means we're not for everybody. Some people, let me ask it like this, Kimisha. Do you find that because you're so structured that you don't have a huge tolerance for people that aren't structured? Because I know I do. So it's like I can't deal with foolish spontaneity, if that makes any kind of sense.
I know it's not fair. It's not fair, but I feel the same. I do. I know it's not fair because we can't expect, us out of everyone else. Everyone
Mm,
else, but it's hard for you to wrap your mind around that when you're someone who's organized or someone who, you know, likes to keep us likes and prefers things a certain way. So when you meet someone who's
yeah,
disorganized or a group of people who um, aren't, organized and structured, you feel away. And I feel like, you just lack discipline in this
I
area. And I need for you
yeah,
to be focused. I need you to focus and I need you to zero in. Let's focus on this. And you can be undisciplined, like for instance, at work with coworkers. You can be undisciplined at home. Here, I need you to focus because I'm going to do my part. I need you to do your part. Okay. Don't expect me to handle everything. So, I
yeah.
mean, I get
What
it.
I don't, I man, you must be my cousin or something because it's like I'm just no, I'm just I cannot stand people that are always late.
Mm,
I cannot stand like my home, our like Zenjana, our home. Thank God for her and her military training because our home is organized. Things are in its place. I can't stand, I can't stand a messy house. I can't stand a messy car. I can't, no, it just, I get upset. It's like, not like where I'm raging, but I'm just
yeah.
like, even when I'm cooking, yes, I cook. Even when I cook, the kitchen's got to be clean before I can't be cut cleaning chicken and the counter's nasty and all kind of stuff. I have to have things got to be organized. Things got to be in their place. I, I I get very uncomfortable with people who always lose their keys. Like I, Kimi J. I,
Oh,
I
I'm
can't.
here. I'm here. But when you said that, it reminds me of some. Okay, don't worry about it. You're right. I get it.
No, it's like
I get it.
my keys are in my left pocket, my wallet's in my right pocket. That way I know if my left pocket feels loose or there's nothing in it, I don't have my keys. So they got to be somewhere. I put my stuff at the end of the night in the same place, right?
Yeah.
Again, it comes down to discipline.
Yes.
So for me, I had to be with someone who was maybe not exactly like me, but pretty darn close.
But that translates to what you do as well. Being a CPA, and
Yeah.
you
No,
have to
because
be organized. You have to have things a certain way. Things bookkeeping requires that you're it requires that
yeah.
you're organized. You have to be. Things
And
have
the
to make
thing is,
sense.
and the thing is too, we're both in tax stuff, and it's like tax is pretty much an exact science. So it's like if a client comes to you, it's like, okay, how much am I getting back in my refund? Well, it could be anywhere from $1 to 5,000. Take your pick. No, we're bottom line people. It's like just to, and the thing with people like us is that we can be out. Let me speak for myself. One of the things is that because of that type of thing, we can be mistaken for being blunt. And maybe we are blunt, but it's like it can be off putting for some people. But people who are like us get us. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
it does. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
so I work with a lot of tax attorneys. They It's taken a minute at this new firm. I think when I say taking a minute, it took more than 6 months, but they learned my personality, so they know I am blunt. I can be very blunt. And here's the thing, and that's only at work, it seems, or with when I'm comfortable around, like, family members, things like that. But for whatever reason, I struggle opening my mouth when it comes to anything else, like in relationships or something like that. Like I'm not as blunt. I'm more, you know,
Yeah. No, you can
or,
switch it
just
on and off. Some people, it's
mild
not like go
mannered,
all the time.
quiet,
Right.
reserved, whatever. But
But when it come to work
when it comes to
and
work,
and your kids, it's like, yes, it's like Jesus. Yeah,
I'm gonna say what I
yay
have
is yay and nay is nay. There's no there's no white or black. In fact, you wearing black and white right now. You know,
there's
there's no gray.
no gray area. There's no gray area. And people say that about my personality too. It's either I'm one
Yeah.
this way or that way, but never in the middle.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I think the world needs people like us that calls. I say it like this: people that call balls and strikes, right? People who just look. And the thing is, and I get that from my mother because my mother is one of the most objective people I know. Like, if I'm wrong, she'll say, "Gregory, you're wrong. You're my son. I love you. I'm not going anywhere, but that was stupid. Why'd you do that?" Right? And to all those that are listening, I think everybody needs at least one friend that's like that. That'll not necessarily tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Tactfully, of course. But I think that's really
Yes.
important. Yeah, of course.
Yes, of course.
Finally, as we're wrapping up, let's talk about your faith in God and the Air Force. Has your faith in God become stronger, or has your faith in God been affected in a positive way because of your military experience?
I will tell you this.
What's that?
Okay. My parents are ministers. When I went in the Air Force, I'm not going to lie, I was uh, very rebellious, right? And when I went in, outside of praying to get me through training, or praying that I make my weapons quals, things like that, um, I did not spend, like, my faith at the time that I went in the service, in the years that I served. I was in a backslidden state, and I wasn't attending church. I wasn't spending time with God. I wasn't spending time in His Word. It wasn't until after I got out of the service, as a matter of fact, um, and life experiences, right? Like with my divorce, because we weren't raising our children in a Christian household together. But of course, my children were introduced and knows of Jesus Christ, and that's through my parents and my aunts and uncles. I have a large family. We would do the Sunday dinner thing. My children definitely had exposure, but it wasn't until I went through. I ended a certain relationship that my faith in God strengthened, that I returned. And when I say returned, I mean that I fully started committing myself in strengthening my relationship with Christ, and, you know, trying, desperately trying
Mhm.
to work His principles. So I won't say that the military strengthened my faith in God. It wasn't until after my military service and going through, life experiences, the end of my marriage, that I returned and gave my life, rededicated my life, and it strengthened my faith in God. So now, more so, me raising my children by myself over these last few years, um, my faith is stronger now, and I'm believing in myself more now than I actually did when I was in the service, or even when I excuse me, my first decade of me, being married and with my spouse. I did not, it's not that I didn't fear God, but I didn't allow Him to be the third, to be in the marriage. It's not like I did it on purpose. It's just that that's not the way, we didn't build our relationship with Christ being, in the center of our marriage. And
Mhm.
so I think that also maybe is the reason why, the relationship ended, or wasn't strong enough to keep, I wasn't strong enough to keep going because of a lot of infidelity. But I'm thankful now, I'm stronger now. I'm trying to stay in community to keep me going because I get discouraged a lot. I get
Yeah.
discouraged when I'm trying to look for a community that can keep me grounded. You know what I mean? That are like minded. But I'm finding that honestly, especially in this last season, I feel like the enemy's been chasing me harder since I've returned to Christ than he was when I was out there backslidden and not even trying to serve him, in spirit and in truth. So that's where I'm at right now. I feel like I'm in a season of pruning, and I'm trying to get back on track.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I can say as we wrap up this conversation, which was a really, really good one, it had everything. It had, a wonderful story and testimony and a whole lot of jokes. So we one thing when it comes to your relationship with the Lord is that,
Thank you, Zinja.
yeah, it's an everyday thing, man. It's like I use this example, and let me encourage you and encourage the audience. When I have, I've been divorced, and when I went to divorce recovery counseling, one of the things that the counselor at the time said this, and it changed my life, is that our spiritual walk has ups and downs. And if you were to draw, and we're math people, if you draw a graph with an x and a y axis, and if you start doing this, this is your life,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes you're up, it's like you're on a spiritual high,
Yes,
and then sometimes you're like, God, where are you? Or sometimes, like in Romans 7, it says, the good I want to do, I don't find myself doing. And the stuff I know I shouldn't be doing, I'm doing. When
that's
you
right.
do that type of stuff, right? That is like the struggle of all mankind, including you. But if you draw a straight line through all the zigzags, and if it's going like this upwards, you're doing okay.
I know that I'm hard on myself, because I feel like I have to take accountability. Yes, there's God's grace, but I have to take accountability for what I'm not doing, or, you know what I mean? Like, if you know a thing, and again, I know self condemnation isn't good, but I really struggle with that. The fact
Yeah.
that, yes, I want to do good. I'm trying to do good. And I don't mean I'm out here just being a heathen, guys. I mean, I
No
mean
one's accusing you
that,
of that.
right? Listen, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, we all have certain standards that we are trying to strive towards, or we like to hold ourselves to. I get disappointed when I miss the mark. And I
Mhm,
get disappointed in myself when I know I have to go back and repeat something that God told me to do that I didn't do.
mhm.
So it's, me working through the disobedience, it feels like a setback sometimes. But I'm trying.
Yeah,
I'm
and
gonna continue to.
that's the point right there, is that you're trying. You're not satisfied with whatever your mess may be. And guess what? I'm no different than you. It's like there's just because I got all this podcast authoring stuff, there's stuff I struggle with. But again, that now there's no condemnation, Romans 8, to those who no longer walk after the flesh but walk after the spirit, right? Greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. It's not about you trying to do the best you can. It's about allowing God to work in you and let him do the obeying. Christianity is one of the easiest religions to mess up on your own, right? It's when you give your life to God and say, you do the surrendering. And it's every day. Renew your mind every day. Just like in the armed forces, there's no
No.
days off. There's no days off in this, right? So I'm praying that you find Christian community that will love you, love your kids, and that will hold you accountable in love, not in oppression, but in liberation. Galatians
Thank
5:1.
you.
Stand therefore in the liberty for which Christ has made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. So when you get the word in you, and even when the enemy attacks you, you have enough word in you to fight what the enemy says in your head. And I've had to do that fight many times. And let's let you know that myself, and I'm sure Zenja and Alana can say this with conviction, is that we're praying for you. You have a community, even though we may be in another part of the country, but you're not alone in this Christian fight. We got you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. And let's end on that note. Guys, if you also have the same struggles that we have a Jesus that's real, that hears, that heals, and that helps. The 3 H's: hears, heals, helps. He's there for you, right? So, hey, if you want to learn more, go to GregoryLBloomfield.com. You can sow a seed in this ministry as well on Cash App and PayPal. And thank you, Kimi J, for your service.
Thank you for your
Not
support.
just in the Air Forces, but to your kids, to your community, and God's got you.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Until next time, everybody, we're going to have a new episode on Sunday, and we'll have another episode on Thursday as well. So until next time, we thank Kimi J for her service, and let's continue to pray for her as we pray for one another in the motivation of this family. Be inspired and be motivated. God bless you. Thank you, Kimi J.